Welcome to Happily Ever Aftermath, the podcast that explores the movies that influenced how we view love and romantic relationships. Yes, there will be spoilers. I'm your host, Diana Rojek-Sconard. For once, just live in the moment. We're talking about The Best Man, 1999, and I'm here, and she's back. Oh my God, welcome back after such a long time with the amazing Alysa Lucas. Hello.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here and to see and hear you and be with you and talk about one of my favorite movies of all time.
I know. I remember you mentioning this in your podcast, and what's amazing about it, so this is the first time I had seen it, and I'm just like, cool, we're going to watch this movie. And then I watched the movie, and it's like, oh my God, I know that there are like sequels and like spin-offs and like there's an entire franchise of this, but I am not allowed to know anything about this until we record. Okay.
Yeah, you got to stay off Best Man holiday. And I was doing some research, and it looks like in 2020 they were talking about doing a Best Man wedding, but that has not come to fruition yet. And so let's hope that does.
Okay.
Fingers crossed.
No, that's awesome. Oh, even more so, I hear that they're looking to do like maybe even a TV series.
I would love it.
Oh, amazing. So The Best Man, I'd mentioned before, it was 1999, and I have so many notes, and I'm glad that you're here because, okay. Just for those who are unfamiliar, it is a story. Okay, just before I stole this from IMDb, but I also hated the way they wrote it up, so I just kind of massaged it myself. Okay, so before his best friend's wedding, the life of a Chicago writer becomes crazy after his friends get an advance copy of his book based on their lives. So, this cast: Taye Diggs, Nia Long, Morris Chestnut, Harold Perrineau, Terrence Howard, Sanaa Lathan, Monica Calhoun, Melissa de Sousa, and Regina Hall. And you are going to be my guide because I wrote down who was whom, and my one time and my notes will not be as powerful as your history.
Yes, because I've seen this movie so many times.
Excellent.
And when she asked, like, do you need to stream it? I was like, I own it. I have it on DVD. And I had it on VHS. But
I was going to ask. I'm just like, oh my God. Because I saw a tweet of yours not too long ago, and you were talking about, I think you had watched Sex and the City or something like that, and you had it on VHS. I'm like, wow.
Oh, yeah, I had lots of VHS tapes, and so then I had to transfer over to DVDs, and now with streaming, I have only kept the DVDs that really mean something to me. So Anna Green Gables, The Best Man Holiday, so many others, Psych, the TV show, but like those are some of the standbys or like the classics for me.
It's the ones that in the event of some sort of streaming emergency mishap, you still have access.
Exactly. Like, I'm not selling this at a garage sale. Sorry. You're going to have to go find your own copy of The Best Man. But you're right. The cast is stacked. And I think for 1999, especially, I think you and I would agree that representation really matters. And, like, we see more and more stories, Black stories, but this, there maybe weren't as many then, and this was just a really great, I think, story overall. Very interesting story of friendship as well as romance, and just having so many powerful performances. Like, I know it's like a rom-com type of thing, but Terrence Howard in this, to me, as Quentin, is just, it's his best performance in my mind of everything he's done, including what he won an Oscar for, Hustle and Flow, right? Didn't he win an Oscar for that?
If he didn't, he was definitely up there in the nominations.
Yeah, that's right. He
in the limelight.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, he's so good in this movie.
So it's so funny though, because like I take movies like this so personally, where it's just like, he's such an asshole, but he's supposed to be, so he wins, I guess.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, he's just so funny. You can just see these moments of where he's just off on the side paying attention to what other people are doing, so he can sneak in with like a one-liner to make someone feel real bad.
Yeah.
But he is who he is, and I think that's particularly why he is appreciated by his friends is because he's honest, and
Absolutely.
not everyone is. And so he would be an example in my lying and deception class as someone that is a radical, honest person.
Right. And well, it doesn't help that as of like recently, I've been working on some things in therapy, and one of the things that come up is just like, oh God, I wish I could remember it, but the core of it was like, honesty without compassion is just hurtful. And I'm just like, okay, well, he's got the honesty down, but
needs to work on the compassion
a little
maybe bit. we don't see it in this one, maybe we'll see it in the sequel.
Maybe I'm just one of those things where it's just like, well, if this was like a true rom-com, this would be one of those things where just like he turns it around because he finds the love of his life, and I'm just like, well, that's not fun.
What
and
happened?
Also that's damn, well, that's also not fun either. It's like you if anything, you need someone, if you're going to, if you're looking for a long-term relationship, you need someone that will keep you true to yourself.
So he needs to find someone who's also into radical honesty, maybe. But I also think, like, you're right, it's maybe categorized as a romantic comedy, but it's not necessarily, because it isn't always feel good, because at the central portion of the story is essentially all of these dark behaviors that Taye Diggs brings up in his book written by his character Harper. And it's, of course, perfectly named Unfinished Business.
Right.
And so I think, like, that is what I find so fascinating about this particular movie, is because there's so much dysfunction that or toxic behaviors that need to be worked out by at least a couple of the characters, not all of them, right? And you really see that Taye Diggs has, and his character as Harper really has a lot he needs to figure out, and they help him figure it out, whether he likes it or not. You shouldn't have wrote a book, buddy, if you didn't want people to say anything.
And even so, like, he's in so much denial of just like, these are fictionalized versions.
They are not. And it's funny because this week in my deception class we talk about self-deception, and I should probably bring up this movie and be like, let's talk about Harper saying, he's like, these are fictional characters based on experiences I have. Well, why are the experiences so specific that people have these memories? So when they read the book, they're like, I'm this character. And then,
Right. So, okay. So in the beginning of the movie, there is Harper, Taye Diggs, as we mentioned, and then his long-term girlfriend, Robin, and I get this too, where it's just like, he's going off to see his friends before she comes, and I think that's really great, because it's an opportunity for him to be with his friends without just like, here's my relationship, and then she has to be on on his side the whole time, which is a perfect introduction to Shelby, who is the basically the whole me, and that's so I thought that they were married, but is it just his girlfriend?
His girlfriend. Okay, so so it's like, so off mic we were talking about, there's so many characters in this, and so you have like the 4 group male friendships plus Nia Long's character Jordan, who are all friends, right? So then you have Harper, played by Taye Diggs, who has that long-term girlfriend, Robin, which I agree, like, what is she supposed to do for a whole weekend with people she doesn't know? Like that, unless she has friends in New York, this sounds awful. So come just for the wedding, right? Yeah. Then you have Lance Sullivan, played by one of my favorites of all time, Morris Chestnut, a very handsome fella. Indeed. And he is an NFL player that befriended Harper in college, because Harper was like the newspaper editor. And so Harper works with Mia, the good girl, and that's the wedding they're going to. Lance and Mia are getting married. Then you also have Quentin, who we talked about, played by Terrence Howard, who's the player, is not attached to anyone. He describes himself in this movie as a pimp. So he's like, he doesn't believe in monogamy. He makes those things very clear, very honest about all those things. Sure. And then you have Julian, who is like the 4th guy friend, and then his partner Shelby, who is literally the worst. Yes, I use the literally from Parks and Rec. The Rob Lowe does. She is such a manipulative person that she doesn't want Julian spending any time with his friends, and then when she wants him to take her dress shopping for the wedding, and he's like, but I have plans, and she's like, oh, I see, it's Gang Up on Shelby Day, and it's like she always has tears on standby to get what she needs, is sort of. And then of course you have Jordan, who is sort of the friend who is also a woman, is sort of part of the guys, but not part of the like the four solid of the guys, and she is unattached because she is all about her job and her ambition and like the TV. It looked like it was like BET or sort of like the entertainment industry, and she doesn't have time for that.
No, you know? Not at all. And it is amazing. Okay, do you know about how old they are? I couldn't pinpoint it just right.
I want to say they were probably in their late 20s here. Okay. That's what I would wager a guess, because I also have to think, like, as an NFL player, like, unless you're a Tom Brady, you're not gonna last that long, you know. And so I want to say mid to late 20s.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's sort of what I would wager a guess on, yeah.
Because
they look a little older than that. They look a little Dylan McKay in 90210. But that's reference. What I would wager a guess.
That's the other thing, though, because, okay, so they give Quentin a little bit of crap for not finishing college yet.
Yeah.
So there's that version. I'm just like, well, how old are they? If, like, they're in their 30s, maybe, but at the same time. On the other side of it, though, they actually play themselves back in college.
Yeah.
And they do these little versions of trying to make them look younger. Like, they give Lance, like, a
baseball cap or his do-rag.
Yeah, exactly. And all these little things where I'm just like, oh, okay, well, they definitely, well, I'm glad they didn't, like, have other actors portray them, but at the same time, now it looks really, really like Dylan McKay.
It's a little cheesy in that sense, and the only thing is, like, I think, like, if you do the math, because Harper has gone to graduate school, and this is, as far as I understand it, his first book.
Yes.
And so Oprah's picked it up for her book club, and Jordan's got the advanced copy that she seems to be sharing with everyone, even though none of them can keep a secret. And so I would say, like, time-wise, that it would make more sense, like, 28, because, like, if you go straight from college to graduate school, maybe he was 25 when he was finished. I don't know. I never guess I realized or try to understand how old they were. But going off a math of football players, they're not going to last very long because it does such damage to their body and brains. So,
and that's another thing that I really like about their friendship is that, okay, so Mia is engaged to Lance. They're the ones getting married. And I think it's great that in their flashback, like, so one thing about her is that she's the quote unquote good girl, but she also takes no crap either. And so when she first meets Lance, she has no problem just being, talking about his performance there. And basically it's just like, if you're not careful, you're going to, like, blow out your career with one injury.
Well, it was funny because he immediately wants to be introduced to her, and Harper even says, no, she's a good girl. And he's obviously been, well, I don't want to say obviously, but, like, he's been sleeping around as a football player. And in fact, in the moment before Mia shows up, he's telling Harper about his latest conquest in Pittsburgh, right? So it's like, no, I'm not going to introduce you to this girl. And then when they talk, she comes up to Harper and is like, this is the picture of Lance Sullivan, da-da-da-da-da. And she doesn't even realize it's him, which I love, because I'm sure he's so used to everyone knowing who he is, right? So he just has this expectation that these girls are probably going to come to him. She doesn't know who he is, and she's like, oh, that was a good game. And she's like, oh, you watched? She's like, I love the game. Let me give you some tips. And she said not only something about be careful about playing on turf, but she also mentioned something about a skill he needs to develop. And so, like, she understands the game to, like, but it's also one of those moments where he's never been challenged like that before whatsoever, and then just blasted on his ability as a football player, which is probably his entire identity at this particular point. I mean,
Right.
I think we see a Lance Sullivan who's about to get married who was really into God and his faith then, but like I think has even sort of leaned into that more as he's grown older. So.
Absolutely. And that that becomes an important part towards the end of the movie as well.
Yes.
So they're, they're the ones getting married, hence the best man.
Yeah.
And so that's really there. You don't get too much, but this is one of the great things about 90s movies is that for some reason I don't see it enough now because it's just like, let's get into the movie. You'll figure it out later. Whereas 90s movies, they really lay out quickly characters and they do show and not tell really well. It's going to sound funny, but we did Tommy Boy not too long ago, and I'm just like, they really did a really good job of just like, here's like 5 minutes worth of just like, bam, you have a good understanding, you have an understanding what the conflict is, and then you're ready to go. And then with The Best Man, though, it's just like, and now here is, Julian, which I guess I'm like, okay, so he's Julian, but then they call him, a nickname.
Munch by his last name.
Munch, okay, yeah. So I'm just like,
or
okay.
Merch. No, it's Merch. Sorry.
Okay.
I can't read my own writing.
Yeah, so that's have we covered everyone? We've got Jordan, we've got all these people. We got I think we made it. I think we made it through this core cast.
Well, and it's interesting because as we get to know Harper and Robin first, because Harper is the best man and he's the one leaving Chicago to go to New York where it appears everyone else lives.
Yes.
And so what we see is that we establish their problem is that she seems to be ready to get married and he's like, no, I'm nowhere near that. And then he's going to see his friends and then he runs and Merch picks him up from the airport and then they go to get Jordan and then they meet Quentin when he's doing a performance and then Lance comes in and then that's when we get to meet Shelby and then Lance and Harper go and Jordan go to see Mia at their home. And so that it's like it has a true form feeling of like when you go into town and someone picks you up and you got to go here and then you come here and then everyone's there. It just, I think is true to form and gives a real, I mean, it's 10 or 15 minutes of the movie at least, but it really does build those relationships and who those characters are and how they're connected. And sometimes I wonder how Merch and Quentin are apart. Like how the four of them are friends.
Right.
But
right.
They are. And sometimes like, who are we to judge that they also, one of the things is you might become friends in college and people change and you stay with a Quentin who's honest, an honest pimp, and you stay with Merch who's a doormat for Shelby, and you hope things change, and you can't control anyone though. You can only control yourself and your reaction to them. So.
Oh yeah, but I mean that doesn't stop Quentin from trying to influence his friends in any way, and Lance does comment that especially when there's all of these like confrontations between all of them, in fact, they're very I would say that Quentin is the one, bringing up all of them basically, because they'll make these comments about marriage or their relationships. And he's like, really? And he'll throw out these hypotheticals that are, and it's just, and again, I just hate him so much. Good job.
He's a good instigator. He's a good instigator.
Right. But then there'd be no movie if he wasn't,
Yeah. Well, he's just the timing and how he says things and the look in his eye and stuff. I was like, is he playing himself or is this like an Academy Award winning performance?
The answer is yes, both.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably.
Yeah. So, I mean, just you've got, well, even better, when Robin is dropping off Harper at the airport, she has read the book and she's like, well, I do know he's going to see that who is like, was it Kendall in the book?
Yes.
And he's just like, and starts the beginning of the running line of just like, it's fiction,
Yeah.
So it's just like, well, you're going to be seeing this person and all this other stuff, the one that could have been, and all this other stuff. And sometimes I wonder, like, when people write certain things, they don't realize what they're writing, but they are telling on themselves more than they actually thought they would. And so, just seeing, and you get to see the stories. And another running gag is the fact that Julian cannot keep a secret, and so he knows nothing until so he's like, did you know, like, yeah, we knew. Like, what?
We knew that. So he didn't even know things happened until he read the book, and that is evidence why some of it is true, because he did kiss Jordan, who is Kendall in the book, and everyone knew except for Julian, because he can't keep a secret. So then it's like, so what things are true and what things are not? Like, what is the line? And then I think the question becomes ultimately for his the conflict for him is that, how do you write about people like your friends without talking to them first? You know what I mean? And so that becomes a major question for this, and why they might react the way they do, because he's writing about their lives essentially. And even Shelby, oh my goodness, she's great in this movie too. Melissa DeSouza, she's like, Harper, I got my eyes on you. Like, when you want to write about me in one of your little books, don't. So like, she even knows about the book, and it seems the only person who doesn't know about the book is Lance, but Lance is also in season for the NFL and just got a new contract. So and then you have a wedding in the middle of the season, and then they talk about you have Dallas next week, and he was just basically what Mia wants, and so he hasn't had time to read the book, but he seems excited to read it and to support his friend, and he's like, I know it's going to be good, and, very supportive of the things that his friends do, even if Quentin wants to be a pimp and Julian works with kids, and Harper writes books about his friends. Right.
And other things that are just like these tiny droplets of realization after watching it. I'm just like, because he's like, oh, you read the book? Oh, you read the book? Because, it's not out yet. They're advanced copies. So he's just like floored, and he thought it wouldn't happen until after the wedding. Yeah. And when he talks to Mia and she's like, congratulations on your book. He's like, oh, you read the book? She's like, no, but I'm sure it was wonderful. And it's like, oh Lord, just like all these things after you've watched this movie. And this is where, so we've spoken a lot about the people, and this is where I would encourage everyone, if you have not seen this movie yet, please do, because I think it'll just, it's more than hijinks and misunderstandings. This is one step beyond that in just a wonderfully written story. So this is where I'm going to say that. But first I want to ask you, you said you had this, on VHS. When was the first time you saw it?
I was thinking about that, and I don't remember seeing it in the theater, but I'm sure I did, because I worked at a movie theater at the time, and I would go see the movies for free and that sort of thing like that. And of course, because of Morris Chestnut, I know I would have been there. I always had a little crush on Morris Chestnut, which apparently I think he has a new show out on Fox. I just saw someone, like, I follow him on Twitter, and he retweeted something about a TV show, and I was like, oh, I'll have to go look at that, but I haven't had time. But I always love him. So, and the first time I saw him was in Boys in the Hood, which came out several years beforehand. He plays one of Cuba Gooding Jr.'s friend, Ice Cube's brother, Cuba Gooding Jr.'s friend in there. I don't want to give any spoilers, but that's also an excellent movie that people should see. Very different, but excellent movie.
Yeah, it's really strange, because I'm just like, oh, Morris Chestnut, and I pause and I go like, he's someone where I can't start picking out all the things that I've seen him in, because it's just Morris Chestnut in general. Mm-hmm. It's like a presence.
He is one of those people where it, like, I know he's acting, but I will always see him as Morris Chestnut. Whereas there are some people, when they act, you see him as whatever character it is. And I just think that indicates his level of presence as a human being, and not necessarily his skill as an actor, because I think Tom Hanks is great, but he's always Tom Hanks, in my opinion. Like, you know what I mean? I just think it says a lot more about who, like, what kind of person he is.
Sure.
So whereas, like, Daniel Day-Lewis, I'm always like, oh, you're the Butcher Bill guy, or, the guy from Last of the Mohicans. It's not Daniel Day-Lewis. Right. So
right. No,
I think
totally.
that's just a different, but like, I don't remember, and this is really upsetting to me because I remember most of where I've seen movies. I'll remember where I saw it, who I saw it with. But this one, I've seen it so many times that I can't recall. But I bet that I saw it in the theater. Either if we had it in the theater, I would have saw it the night before it came out. If it was at another movie theater, I probably would have saw it opening weekend with probably my best friend Kate.
So you've managed to get a little bit of evidence going to what may be, but it's still,
but
it's
still not unclear. It's still unclear. And it, to me, like I said, it's upsetting because I'm like, oh, I saw that at Elmwood Plaza 8 in Lansing, and it was in Theater 4, and I saw that with my mom and my dad, and like, I just have maybe I need to sort of remove the space from my brain, but I remember that stuff and a whole lot of not other things.
That's okay. That's okay. Yeah. We are getting older, so it's okay because some more things are going to have to replace that. So like, you're going to remember when you saw like this other thing. I was like, oh, that was streaming on Netflix. And yes.
Or it's going to be like, oh, the pandemic. I paid $20 for Promising Young Woman, and now it's streaming on HBO Max. So cool.
Oh my God. Amazing. So,
I wish I had a better story for it because I used to make a big deal about going to see movies on opening night. And so I imagine it was something like that. Like, let's do it.
No. The story is in the VHS and the DVD.
Yes,
and the fact that you can so easily quote Shelby, and it's just like, yes, I love it. So one of the great things about this, because I asked you, I'm just like, cool, the best man, how, what's this, that, and the other, and you're just like, well, it's about romance and friendship. I'm like, excellent. Yeah. I've never seen it. I trust you. Let's do it. But I think it's great that you have these established relationships, which, for the podcast, it's still important to talk about, even though we talk about when. Yes. But these ones are kind of amazing because, especially since we're jumping back and forth.
Yeah.
And, this is them in college. This is them now. And and again, it's why I really want to see the sequel so much.
Yes.
Because they're interesting. They're in their, like the prime of their careers.
Yeah.
But in different versions of them. When I say the prime of their careers, is like some are still figuring it out. And I think it's great is that even though we have like not all of them, like Quentin, oh, when are you going to get your act together? You still have Julian, who is just like, well, yeah, I could take this position at this law firm, but I'm working at this one organization, and he wants to do it.
He wants to have a fulfilling career, and that's different than how Jordan sees it, or Harper sees it, or Lance sees it, and Quentin sees it. And I think what's interesting is that Quentin does judge other people and tries to like influence them, but also Harper does, and he gets on Quentin's case a couple times about when are you going to get your life together. But at the same time, his long-term girlfriend, Robin, took a long time to figure out what she wanted to do. She's a caterer.
Yes.
But she was like, I don't know, a whole list of other things, which is basically Quentin. And so in some ways, I think his judgment of his friend is getting out any sort of feelings he has about the fact that his girlfriend took so long to figure out what she wants to do in life. Like, probably because he knew he wanted to be a writer forever, and Lance has probably been playing football forever, and Jordan knew she was going into the entertainment business, and what I like is that there are different experiences there. Like, Quinn's not the kind of person who's going to sit in a job from 9 to 5 in a cubicle, and he doesn't want to do the family business, which is hotels. And I think that he's just trying to figure it out himself, and he'll figure it out. And Julian is basically like, I went one route and it wasn't for me, and this is what I want to do instead. And I think that's sort of what happens in life. Like, people have different experience. It's like when I meet with students, and some people are like, I know exactly what I want to do, and other people, I don't know what I want to do. And this is the 5th major I've had. And the thing for me is that it says there's like no true path in life, even if people assume that there's one way to do things, that we don't have to be on the same timetable or path as other people. What's most important for us or Quentin or Julian or Harper is that they're doing what they want to do, or they figured it out the way they want to do it. And really, who is Harper to judge just because he knows he's wants to be a writer and he has a 22 city book tour and Oprah wants his book for the book club? It doesn't mean he's necessarily figured it out. Right. Or exactly a good person, because again, I will remind you, he wrote about his friends without talking to them first. Like, yeah. And I think that's a real ethical issue.
Yes. And also, so you've got, Harper is, he is being judgmental, towards people in his own ways. And at the very least, Quentin is an equal opportunity. So it's just like, oh, when are you going to get your life together? Quentin has the guts to stand up to Lance when he's just like, oh yeah, me and Mia are going to get married. She's going to raise my kids and all this other stuff. She's like, you think she wants that? Or you think that you were the only person that she has ever been with? She's like, yes. And he's just like, really now?
Yeah. So he's what you might call the devil's advocate in a group situation. But there's a really cool scene that the part you're referring to is, so the first night that Harper gets into New York, the guys get together and play cards. Yeah. And it's just like that low key, is hanging with your friends and talking. And there are parts of that scene I dislike, how they might talk about women. And I'm like, how is this my favorite movie when I was 21? But it's so layered. So there's a lot going on. But how they talk about women, some of the misogyny, some of the thoughts, but they challenge each other, which I like. So Quentin's like, do you think she's really only been with you after all the stepping out that you have done? Not only in college, but what they're implying is that he has continued to step out and that he is now not going to do it because, or at least that's what Lance is saying, is because I'm getting married. But then there's there's challenges from all of them. And even Harper's like, you sound like a caveman. And, so I do appreciate, instead of just letting the talk happen, things that seem problematic, or at least criticize or analyze or question in some way. So watching it back in 2021, I can appreciate that about that scene, right? That there is this level of like, what are you saying? Like, you're ridiculous, or that's stupid, or that,
Exactly. And again, rethinking about it, I'm just like, at least Quentin is the only one who's owning it. Because if you look at everyone who's on there, you have someone in a monogamous relationship and he hates it, but he grinned and bears it. The other one who's like stepping out on his fiance, whom he claims to love like no other. And then you have the quote unquote serial monogamist who is just like potentially is pining over the one that could have, the one that got away. The unfinished business, if you will.
Yes, that's the thing. That's why I'm like, oh my gosh, buddy, it could have been tattooed to your forehead, right? Like, this didn't necessarily need a book. It could have almost been a different story if he would have let it play out through the wedding to really finish that business, so to speak, because that's the clue right there that this is about your life, because Harper has unfinished business, because Jordan is the one that got away. We learned some information about him and Mia, and basically he's never talked to Lance about it, and there's a lot of things that need to be resolved, and writing a book isn't going to do it, buddy. It does not. I think even Lance says it doesn't purge you from your wrongs or your sins, right? Just because you wrote it doesn't mean anything.
Sure.
And so I'm like, that's a good point, right? Like, just because you wrote it, it's not like, oh, if I write it, they'll know that I've recognized it. And, the two main parties in which are of interest in the book will be in marital bliss, so they won't care. And then, Kendall, who is essentially Jordan, played by Nia Long, that they're going to have another chance at it this weekend, knowing good and well he has a long-term girlfriend named Robin who will be at the wedding on Sunday. Yeah. Like, your decision-making skills might indicate to me that you're younger than 25, or, isn't that the time where, like, the brain becomes fully formed, or,
According
so I'm not putting down young people in decision making. But in this particular case, like, Harper, you make poor life decisions.
Correct. Starting to not question that title of the best man. But,
yeah. The best man. He thought he was the best man.
That was part of the problem. He thought so.
He thought so.
So given all of the relationships that they have here, just for the purposes of the games that we play here. So
yes,
I want to ask, and you've listened to the podcast, so you know, but I want to ask, like, do you think Harper loved Robin?
Oh, that's a good one. Or that's a great question. I think that she even says to him in like one of the opening scenes that she's taking to the airport, or maybe if it's even before that, she's basically like, we've been together the longest, and I'm the person that you've had the most fun with. It's almost like he doesn't know who's good for him. Like, and my answer to that question is, Robin is too good for Harper. Robin deserves better, but that may be him working through his unfinished business, helps them get there. I don't know if you want to talk about the end yet, if you like to put a pin in it. What I just say is, like, I don't like what Harper did to try to repair his relationship with Robin. That was my issue with it. I think they can repair it. I think he does care for her. Yeah. I think he doesn't know because he's not living in the moment. He is a, locked in the past. And so therefore, I don't think he can make good decisions for himself because he's thinking that Jordan is the person that was for him and they had this moment. And sometimes maybe it was just a moment. Maybe y'all were so tired from putting out the newspaper and studying and then dancing to Stevie Wonder, really just, maybe you're loopy. It's like the equivalent of like being drunk or something. Like you haven't had sleep. So maybe it was just something that happened and it actually didn't mean anything. And the fact that we put so much stake in fleeting moments that happened however many years before, like oftentimes, like, we're probably miserable in our present because we're too focused on the past. And I think that's Harper's problem.
Oh, yeah.
And so until he figures that out, I think, again, I just think Robin's too good for him. And she did him a solid by showing up and being, because she's amazing. She's a good person. She's way better than Jordan. No offense, Nia Long. I love you. You're the best. If she's listening to this podcast, Nia Long is amazing.
No, this is about Jordan, not Nia.
Yeah, Jordan. Yeah, obviously Jordan. You did a great job because you hated Quinn. I didn't like Jordan. So, and maybe I see too much of her. And it's not that I want to work in some fast-paced business, but she's like, doesn't have time for relationships, and that resonates. But
well, even so, like you saying that Harper's way too fixated on the past, and I'll add on to it. He's also fixated on the future. I got my tour, I got my this, I got my that. I'm just like, wow, right now.
Yeah, and the thing about it that I think that he's missing out on, that maybe we don't see in the first scenes because she does seem a little scattered. She needs to use his kitchen, and she's got all this stuff going on. And then it comes across that maybe she's a little jealous of Jordan, but how might you not have... It seems impossible not to have some of those pangs of jealousy reading the book and not knowing for sure and having never met Jordan. Yeah. And the thing about it that he seems to be annoyed about is that she's communicated it. And as a communication professor, I have to say that seems to be important, that you would actually talk about how you feel so you can work through it. And that she's saying, I love our relationship, but I have doubts. And these are the doubts. And then she's going into a weekend that she doesn't know what she's getting into. Like, he, as a partner, has not prepared her correctly for going into that weekend. And that's because he is in a whole world of self-deception, right? So he couldn't do it even if he tried. Oh my. But she, like, steps up. She gets in there. She helps save the day. She does all this stuff. She's amazing. And, I think that is... we see at the end of the movie, like, how great she is. And, like, it's almost like we're seeing her through Harper's eyes at the beginning. And then we're actually seeing her for who she is at the end. So when she comes in and meets the friends, right? Like, Quentin, who is like, no, monogamy is not for us in general, like humans, or for men, is I think is his point. And so he's just kind of like, hey. But then Julian is excited to meet her, like, it's so nice to meet you. And like, she does have a great introduction with Lance, but Mia is so happy to see her. Yes. Obviously, Jordan is not necessarily, but she has to play it cool. But everything that I think that Harper likes in Jordan is not that great, because it's clouded by whatever rose-colored glasses he's wearing to view the past, and not looking at who's right in front of him, who's this beautiful, talented, stylish, like, her clothes are amazing, and her patience and understanding, and just to be able to go in there, and think about how many partners going into a wedding where someone that he hooked up with and might still have feelings for is there, and he's caused all this drama because of what he's written in the book, and that she can go in there and hold her own. Right? That she can dance with Lance's uncle, who's, like, really into all the ladies. Like,
on his 5th marriage or whatever.
Yeah, like, he is clearly not maybe the best role model there. Maybe that's where Lance got some of it from. But I just think, like, what she does in this movie, like, you don't really like her at the beginning, and she calls and they talk. But, you're seeing it, I guess, sort of through Harper's eyes. And then when she gets there, how she handles herself is really impressive. Like, I'm like, she's like cool as a cucumber, but like Mia is not going to take crap. But, you have to, like, she's basically like, I'll help you out here, but you have to figure everything else out. You created this scenario. Right. Whereas, like, Jordan's like, you created this scenario, and then she walks out on him. You know what I mean? Like, and so I think, like, that should be a sign to Harper that he has someone who's willing to support him through his past issues, his present issues, and all that future stuff that she can support him through. And that's what he should be focused on. Yes. Is that, isn't this tour cool? And that maybe you can come on part of it, or, like, or hear some of the insecurities I have about it. This is the person who's going to be there for those conversations, who's going to be there on the phone call at the end of the day when you're tired and in your hotel room, or that she might be there along the process, and not just trying to get the exclusive, not just trying to get, Jordan seems very much like she wants to benefit from who her friends are by having a camera at Lance's wedding, by getting the exclusive and, like, maybe her friends would do that, but she feels entitled to it, and that is part of why I don't like her either. But that's okay. Nia Long, you were amazing.
Again, it's one of those things where it's just like, the ambition is not the problem. It's like the execution as this movie goes through. It's and the other thing is just like, Harper even said, "Oh, we're 2 peas in a pod," and it's just like, that's actually like a big slap in the face to her, because it's just like, he has just done so much crap, and she's watching this, and, like, she's like, "Oh, we're just 2 peas in a pod." She's like, screw you. Yeah. Don't say that I'm the same as you, even though it's, it's correct, but at the same time, she's watching the mess that he's made, and it's just like, no.
She doesn't want to be what Harper sees her as if they're the same. Like, because that's the thing is, like, although, let's be real here. Okay, first, Harper wrote the book, so he is at fault. But the reason that book got out to everyone is because of Jordan. And in some ways, you do have to wonder if she did it to create some drama, maybe in his relationship with Robin, maybe to bring up past stuff. But, like, she's the one who she passed it on to Quentin, Mr. Radical Honesty, and Julian Murch, who can't keep a secret. No. And then Shelby read it, and Shelby hates all of them. And they all hate her. So I don't.
The question is, was it intentional, or is it just really bad judgment?
I think it was probably bad judgment, but she never does seem to own up to the fact that she did it in a way that seems like, oh, I didn't know it would make it into Lance's hands. But maybe it's one of those things like she did it, and maybe the reasons weren't as completely clear to her either because of self-deception. Who knows? Maybe this wedding weekend is sort of like there's a lot of buildup from the past, and if Harper lives in Chicago and the rest live in New York, then they all haven't been together necessarily very often.
Yeah.
And so that, I think, builds up a lot about what's happened in the past. And then his book where, you know, he's writing that this person could have been the one. But then she starts to figure out that, like, wait a minute, you and I didn't have sex. So who is this Casey person? And then we discover, is this the time to reveal?
Yeah.
Okay, it's Mia. So Mia is the good girl virgin who's getting married to Lance. What is he called? The Ebony Humper in the book? Oh my God, such a bad nickname. Oh my God. But like she does it as a way to, you know, Harper writes it as her revenge and it being a personal one because she has sex with Harper. But like when she talks about it, he was a good friend. He was a gentleman. It was what I wanted. It was what I needed. And it's just basically like it was that moment for her. And that was all it needed to be for her. And she's moved on. She's marrying Lance. And she seems pretty pleased to be having his babies and running the house, as sort of like Lance sees it as him being like the one that is the provider of money and that stability there, that she's the provider in the home. Which is a lot, how a lot of homes are set up, of course. And she seems to be and she seems like she is overly, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but overly happy with Harper's role. She is the one that sort of says he's the one that's kept us together. And so, but he also says that I kept them together. So her misery is because of me, because I set her up with the Ebony. Oh my God. So, but I think she sees it as like, she just needs that release, or she needs to have sex. It's so important to Lance. But like, and he stepped out on her so many times, right? It's like, she's going to do this one thing and she's done.
Right.
And I think that oh my God, I love Mia because I feel like she's like, you know, when it's her and Lance talking, and we could talk about the future, right? Like what happens after the wedding. Yeah. Mia being like, I don't know what you're so upset about. The reason why we got married today is because of Harper, and that's all you need to know. And that's that.
Oh man, no, she is amazing, and see again, and now I'm questioning so many different things. So it's just like, you know, did she not read the book, or did she read I'm just wondering. You know,
she doesn't need to. Because she knows what happened, right?
Right.
And in that moment, she is someone who lives in the moment. Right? Okay. She doesn't, like, that's what she needed at that time. She's done. Now she's living in the moment of her wedding. She's so happy to see her friends, including Harper, who is such a good friend. And as she talks about him at the rehearsal dinner, Lance is kind of like, you can see him starting to question because he starts reading the book. And at first he's like, this is hilarious. Was I that bad? Meaning, did I have sex with that many women? And Harper's like, yeah, you were that bad. And he's like, yeah, you're right. So at first he's kind of like, this is fun and it's funny. But as the weekend goes by, he has insomnia. He starts to pick up on some moments or glances or things that people say, and then that's when he continues to read, and that's when he finds out he's like, Harper had sex with Mia, which I'm like, the two had sex together, so it's not just Harper, but I understand like Harper was the one in front of him, and he beat the crap out of Harper.
Right. And I do think it's amazing, though, again, excellent writing where it's just in the story they don't. but he's able to piece together, because Jordan didn't know either. Jordan finds out in the course of this weekend. She's just like, whoa. I remember when we did that. So how is it, what was happening between, me and this character who's supposed to be Mia? And then she pieces it all together, where she's like, and I'm just like, oh my God. So
that's a good point. Like, at this point, I'm just like, they did it, but like the way he wrote it. Yes. And that's also sort of like a running portion, is how they sort of tease him, is that he kisses women on the forehead. Yeah. And that's sort of the seal. Like, that's when Lance sees red. He squeezes the book, and then he immediately is like, goes for Harper, because he's like, that's what Harper does, is kiss women on the frontal lobe. Although I'm like, is that great writing, Oprah? I don't know.
Well, maybe in the late 90s it was.
Yeah, maybe it was, or there was more to it than sort of what we got from it. Because I think that's really interesting. You have to write a book that isn't real. You have to have enough of the storyline in which to present the book without writing a whole book. So that is quite a feat itself. So
yeah. So go back to my earlier question, so I can say that I answered the question. I'm not entirely sure that.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, no. I'm not sure Harper is necessarily in love. I think he's in a version of love with her that's not as powerful as what she feels for him. Obviously, because she wants to commit to him. But okay. So we have a lot of people to talk about, but at the same time, let's just take it as it is. Yes. What happens after the wedding?
Oof. Okay, so you watched through the dance scene at the end then, correct?
I did.
Oh my God. One of the funniest ends to a movie, it's, so Shelby and Quentin end up in bed together, and they look at each other and they just like scream and run out of bed, and there's all this like great ad-libbing by the actors off camera, and like Quinn says, "Did you touch me?" Like, he's just, and it's just so funny. So I want to start there, because that's where it ends, is that Quentin and Shelby, who has been gloriously dumped in front of everyone on church steps before the wedding, still goes to the wedding and reception. She catches the bouquet, he catches the garter, tries to put the garter on her, and she gets upset. I don't like the way he did it, but I see what he was trying to do, is trying to like get on her nerves sort of thing. And then he kind of chases after her. So you think that there might be sort of like a one night stand coming. And to be perfectly honest, I don't think that either one of them can stand each other. And so I think that's where it ends, and that they don't want to tell their friends about it. You did what with Shelby now? Because they all hate Shelby. I mean, but so that's what I think for them. Yeah. I think that so it does take a lot to get to the wedding, right? Because Lance calls it off, and then so there's all this work, and Lance is very much this religious person, so and Harper is not, so he sort of forces him to repent and pray and those sorts of things, and talk about living in the moment at the reception, right? And so I think that their friendship is going to need a lot of work for it to get back to status quo, but that Lance will try because of Mia. Because he loves Mia. Yeah. I think Harper will be a little lost without Lance. That Julian and Quentin will be the same in terms of the friendship, but that Harper still has things he has to work out, and I don't think it's something that, like, imagine all of this drama you created from your book and someone's wedding weekend, and the wedding was almost called off, and then you go on a 20-week book tour, 20-city book tour, whatever it was, and you're in Oprah's book club, then you're going to have all of these outside people's comments on essentially your life and your friends' lives. Yes. And so I can see a lot of them getting upset or re-upset that he wrote about them. And so I think it's going to take a while for a lot of that to go through. But I don't think Quentin or Julian seem as important in the book to what's happened. So I think they're going to be fine. Sure. I think Jordan is going to have a hard time getting over the fact that basically Harper proposed to Robin at the wedding, and they didn't get their second chance, and she'll probably just bury herself in work and until maybe someone comes along.
Right.
And I don't want Harper and Robin to get married because Robin is better than she is at this moment in her life is a better partner, I guess I would say. I don't want to say a better person. She is a better partner than Harper is to her.
Yeah.
And Shelby, I wonder if they'll ever see her again.
Right.
Because they all hate her.
So
How many times can I say that? They hate her.
They don't even tolerate her to her face.
Well, and I think a really good point, because there are so many things happening, that it's important to note that Murch makes a connection with one of the strippers, well, dancers, because she wasn't a stripper. She was a dancer at his bachelor party, and they talk after, and he invites her to the wedding, and he finally stands up for himself to Shelby, and he ends it. And then one of my favorite lines of the movie ever, you see Quentin sort of in the background eavesdropping, and then he comes up to her, he's like, hey, do you want to pick that up? She's like, what? He's like, your bottom jaw, because she just got dumped by someone she's been able to walk all over and manipulate for however long. It sounds like since college. That Shelby was part of it. What they didn't like it, but she was a part of it. She's all like, the gang's all here. Break out your 40s. Like she really is judgy of the whole group.
And how? Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think, but what do you think? What do you think is going to happen? Because then I envision after we sign off here that you're going to run, not walk, to be able to watch the Best Man Holiday, to be like, Alysa, this is what happened.
So like I said, I have not seen it, and unfortunately we're speaking as if that was not even a thing.
Yes. So I'm talking as if, like, at the end of that movie, what I would have liked to seen happen, or what I thought would have happened.
Which is great, because in prior episodes with certain movies we have set precedent, because I looked and it turns out it's the same writer, same director, and same cast. So when I watch it, that will be locked in stone, but not for this moment that I'm speaking right now.
Yes.
So what I think is really funny is that I think you're right in terms of Shelby and Quentin, where just after that whole thing just happened, I'm really curious, because he seems like freaked out about what happened, but I think that was an attempt to like exorcise her out of the group entirely. Like she might try to get, Julian back in some way and try to ingratiate herself, and then it's just like, no, she's never going to show her face ever again.
I love it. That seems like so Quentin. Like he would totally do that. It's well within like how he self-identifies as a pimp, and like he is, even though it doesn't seem like Julian and Quinn have a lot in common, he does seem want to see his friend happy. Yeah. And that's something that is pretty clear that and then he finally sees his friend happy, and it's not with Shelby. So let me get something out of it, because I'm not monogamous. But bonus. Then let me benefit the entire group of getting Shelby far away from here. And amazing. That's such a great idea.
Oh, thank you. I don't think it's necessarily the case, because they don't speak about it too much, but Quentin, of all people, understands what it's like to have people hounding you for what you're doing for a living when ultimately you're still trying. Julian at least has the decency to, like, he knows what he wants to do. It just happens to not be the successful career that Shelby wants, that Harper wants for him. And so it's just like, let me just, there is a sympathy there. So that's
Quinn doesn't get on people's case for things that they believe in. Like, I don't think he ever gets on Lance's case about his faith. I don't think he gets on I think it's like the disagreement with the monogamy is the main thing. And and then obviously that Harper is trying to act as if, I think that's like sort of the main issue here. Harper acts like he's done nothing wrong, either by writing the book about them or the things that the book is about. Right. So there is perhaps something wrong. Now, some people have open relationships and other things. Even though Lance is stepping out, he didn't see that as going both ways, right? And that fits within his view of maybe the roles of the man and woman in relationship. And so I think, like, Quinn isn't going to get on people's cases for the things that make them happy or what they believe in per se. It's getting on their case for not being truthful or for like he seems pleased. Like, he doesn't help Harper when Lance beats him up. He's like,
right,
you got to take it because you put yourself in the situation. But I want to see Murch happy. I want to see Lance happy. I want, like, this isn't the Harper that we knew, or this isn't the Harper we like, or whatever the case is. He just knows that Harper needs to work some stuff out, but Harper's acting like his shit don't stink. Sorry, can I swear?
Of course.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I think that's his issue with Harper, is that you're going to call on people when you're acting fake or like being a hypocrite, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So, yeah.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Quinn has a code, okay?
The things that I have to admit about him, he played it so well.
Yes.
Okay, so there's characters there. Okay, so I think, this is where it gets kind of hard. I see a good relationship with Julian and Candy, and it's such a beginning. This is like the absolute like origins of adorableness, and it's just like I hope good things for them. And even if it doesn't go on a long-term situation, at the very least, it's something that will come from like a mutual happiness between the two of them. Like I said, not much to work with, but the fact that he managed to leave one relationship for one where it seemed to be a little bit more even.
And I think like that they both felt a connection where it isn't one-sided, where Shelby's running everything and he's unhappy. That it's mutual happiness, and maybe it won't go anywhere, but that one weekend or that one wedding, is gonna be fun. Like, they're out there dancing together. They all, and I love how they end with the "It's like candy," like that song, and they're doing like the, what do you call it, the electric slide? Yeah. And like she's out there dancing and they're all having fun, and so if anything, like a real memorable weekend. But I hope that goes far, because I think, like, even if it is right away, I think some people know when they know, that it works.
Right. Yes. Okay. So I'll go with Mia and Lance next.
Yes.
I can't figure out because the whole time when he's screaming the wedding's off, Mia has no idea. Yeah. And all the things we're talking about with Lance, and this is how it's going to be, and I keep thinking back to Mia and how she was an economics major, and she's just no nonsense. She doesn't have the same ambitions as Jordan, but I think she does, but just with a different route, and I'm not sure exactly what that is. Being like a spouse to Lance, or if she has these other ideas, it's really unclear. Unfortunately, she's not. You don't get to spend very much time with her.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate part, because I do like Mia as a character, and I think that's a good point. And one of the things that just might be the reality of being married to a football player is that there are a lot of things that you have to do, like that she might be attending events and planning and being out in the community, and maybe some of the things that she did in college and beyond can like coincide with that, and that and some people it is like, for some women and others that. Well, I don't want to say just women. Sorry, I was in Lance's 1999 brain. That some people's, they might want to do this thing, but then she's met this partner and, that she wants to be with, and that maybe changes some of her goals, and that their goals go together, and that's having children. And there are so many people who are waiting to have children. That I'm not one of those people, so that's also probably why I went to Lance 1999 brain. Right. But like, and so some of those things can change for people. But I also wonder if like they are married and in like 20 years, like what happens when he no longer has that fat contract or he's no longer in the NFL? Like, I think she could probably help navigate more so than maybe some other football player wives by having some ideas about business. and being able to brand or market her husband, and you know, being a commentator, and having connections with, say, Jordan and an author and Harper and a man of life in town, Quentin, and being able to even, I could even see her like planning things where Lance goes and visits with Julian's kids that he works with, and just like, I think she could be a business side of him.
Yes.
It's whether or not she at some point wakes up and realizes the focus was never on her, unless that's what she wants to do.
Right. And I was thinking about that too. I had the same thing you did, where it's just like my brain was like, oh, I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want my life to be completely centered around, you know, my husband. So why would she pause? Wait a minute. That's not necessarily, you know, it for everybody. And that's not downplaying her decision if that is what she wanted. And so I think you're right. You know, what is his next step? Because she's not, I mean, I'm extrapolating this economics major way too hard, but it's just like,
it's the only information we have.
It's all I gotta work with. And so it's just like, okay, so she's like, I'm imagining she knows ways to have like these investment stretches, you know, it's just like endorsements, things to this effect, to get as much as you can now, but she's got plans for the future as well. Yeah. Because especially if they have kids, you know, she's like, no, my kids I will be taken care of.
Well, and if you think about it, like, I mean, for football players, their careers are shorter overall than I think other athletes in general, just because of the wear and tear, especially, and like the concussions and things of that nature.
Right.
And having to stay on the top of the game. And you know, you see, I think basketball players playing a little bit longer, but at 35 they're retiring, you know, and soccer players 35, you know. It's just like one of those things, like, but that means they're going to have so much life together with their children, and when their children leave the home, that a lot of us might not get with our partners because we have to work until we die.
Oh, man.
So you might as well take a bit, like, she could have quite the system down. And if you move this movie from 1999 to a potential TV series in 2021, what you're dealing with is social media. You have TikTok, you have podcasts, you have so many ways, like the social media, to market, say, Lance Sullivan, but you also have a lot of ways in which Harper could be destroyed, for example, which would be a really fascinating commentary, because we didn't have that. You know, Facebook was what, like 2004?
Yeah.
I don't think MySpace existed then, but like that didn't have the power that our social media has now.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So like, I just think that could be really fascinating. But like Mia's character, I think, I mean, I always say you do you, whatever your path is. And like, just because she got an economics degree doesn't mean she needs to do anything with it. Or maybe she could use it for something to better their life and their home and their future. And it really becomes, in like some ways, like, I hate the momager, like where you have like the moms who are the managers. Yeah. But in a lot of ways, I do think that stay-at-home parents who they run the home and the kids and that sort of thing while their partner goes to work. And to me, that is, although it's not a business per se, there are so many things that those people do. Like, I watch in awe, because I can't imagine going through even like the pandemic with another person in my life, dealing with their stuff and their job, and are they at home, or do we have COVID, like any of that stuff. I'm like, I live by myself and it feels great right now. But like, she's gonna make those things happen. People do so much to make things happen that we don't understand. Like, obviously that comes out of stay-at-home moms, and then you have different partners, you know, staying home now, and they run the ship, and there is something that's very business-like to it, or an organizational style to it, and they obviously don't get paid for what they do, but it's probably one of the highest paid positions that should exist. Yeah. Besides nurses and teachers, of course.
In the other realm of caretakers and
nurturers. Exactly.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Alrighty. Harper and Robin.
Oh goodness, I can't wait.
I mean, it's just, here's the thing though, it's just like, I am so mad at Harper for doing that to her in a public forum in front of his friends. And she said yes, and that's really nice. But for me, it's just like, all right, I'm done doing you favors. And then she's done. I mean, she'll leave and he's going to try his damnedest, you know, to keep her there. But she's like, no. And I don't see it. I don't see it being a thing.
Proposed at someone else's wedding, a wedding that he nearly destroyed.
Yes.
And I was like, first off, it's tacky to like let them have their day or their reception or their moment or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like you can do your own thing without it cutting in on someone else's day. Like to me, that just seems like overall most people would say that's tacky. Number two, I feel like he's doing it as a way to like appease her. Like he knows that she wants to be committed. And this is like, I'm sorry, I love you. And she's just like, yes. And then I'm like, so it's one of those things like, does she say yes because it's in public?
Yeah,
and then it's like, then after that it's like, no. Not only was that tacky, but no, because you need to work on yourself, buddy.
And she even said that too. We have a lot of things, and then of course he turned that against her. We're just like, we need to just live in the moment. And I'm just like, and if he hadn't proposed, I thought maybe it could have been an okay thing where like, let's just have this moment right now, and then I promise we will work on these things and talk about these things. And she did way too many favors for him in that weekend.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, it says a lot more about her character and a lot about his, because like he can't even get it together. Like he, the night before, was going to have sex with Jordan, and now he's like, will you marry me? It's like, I mean, I get like it. Let's say you're on a trip to Italy and it's just like, you've had wine and delicious pasta and the stars are beautiful and all. It's just like the perfect morning, a moment, and you pop the question. But then it's like, to me, there's some level of, you do want to plan for something like this and you do want to have a ring. And so like, unless it's like some real special moment, it seems to me that having the ring might be important to it, having some evidence that this is something he has thought about and wants to have, when we know he hasn't, because if he wouldn't have got his butt kicked by Lance the night before, he would have slept with Jordan. And in that case, she probably would have walked out and that wedding might have been canceled. And so he got beat up by Lance. He would have ruined his relationship, ruined someone else's wedding and relationship. And it's just like, you have so many things that you need to work out. So this is why I talk about this movie in my dark side class, because I think that there's so many questions about what about him, or what kind of person does these things to the people that he loves the most, right?
Right.
And that it's a lot of intentional. Like he was going to have sex with Jordan, and that his partner didn't matter in that moment. Because he's focusing on the past, right? He's not looking to the future in that sense. And it's just like, why would he write about his best friend in a way that people will pick up on in the public? They know that he was the best man at Lance Sullivan's wedding. And so then you like air everyone's dirty laundry, so to speak, especially your own, which compromises other people in the public. And it just doesn't seem like the best way to go about it, right? Like, and you know, I'm not a writer. I'm not an author. I don't have any published books. And I would want to write about friendship, but I don't think I would write about my friends without their permission. And like, even if he says it's fictional, like there seems to be enough evidence to be able to showcase that this is in fact their lives. And can they sue? And if they can, I say sue them.
Well, even if he like tried to, you know, smooth it over by just like, and they just held each other that night, I'm just like, you idiot.
Yeah.
You did not, yeah, whatever. And if I may, this is why I think it's going to, the next level of it, I'll just do this for Harper. He seems like the biggest idiot to where he will not learn his lesson, where he's going to write about the events of this weekend too. And
yeah, I mean, Harper right now, it's on par, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's not going to learn, and like, it is almost to the point, like, he wants to be a famous writer so bad, he doesn't care if he gets bad press for writing about his friends and, like, the ethics of those decisions, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, if this book ends up being, like, a big sell and they want another book, I think he just go back to what works for him, and it's material about the other people in his life. And I'm just like, oh, my goodness.
It's not going to go well.
I mean, what would be more honest is writing, like, a memoir about himself. And, like, the cost of being a writer can be losing relationships depending on how you go about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, my God.
But that would be too introspective. And fortunately, the sequel takes place a good period after. So I'm crossing my fingers.
It's, well, in actual years, it's 14. Like, this came out in 99. And The Best Man Holiday came out in 2013. I don't remember how much time has supposed to have gone by.
Okay. Curious and curiouser.
And I'm, like, trying to, like, bite my tongue so I don't say anything that ruins that.
You're so kind. You're so kind.
Yeah.
Oh, but there we are. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Such a layered story. Such a
So
layered
good.
story. Layered
So
characters. So many characters, but interesting characters.
And that's what happens. And I do appreciate you suggesting this for the podcast.
Yay!
Yeah. So we will definitely revisit the sequel after I've had the chance to watch it. It's all a political thriller, and I'm like, this doesn't work for the podcast. I'm sorry.
No, you're gonna be okay.
Yay! Cool. Alrighty. Where can people find you?
Yes.
And your podcasts?
So I have a couple different podcasts because Kelly Reynolds from another podcast, she's like, you're like a person with tattoos. Once you get one, you want more. So I have multiple podcasts. And so what I did is I have sort of an overarching theme called Friends with Alysa. So that's where you can email me at Gmail. You can find the webpage, Instagram, Facebook, and then on Twitter, it's Friends W Alysa. And what that houses is Best Forevers, a podcast about friendship, Fatalities, a podcast where two friends come together and talk about true crime, and then my upcoming podcast called Unrequited, and that's where when we have to deal with those feelings of crushes, heartache, heartbreak, rejection, and basically what happens when the person that you love doesn't love you back. Shelby and Merch, maybe, I don't know, maybe all of them at some point or another, but
right.
But yes, you can, and all my podcasts are on all your favorite podcatchers, but they're all housed under the idea of Friends with Alysa.
Yes, absolutely. Excellent podcast. And I just listened to your I'm a Bad Friend episode. So good. It stayed with me when I was taking a walk.
Yeah. It's not that we're bad friends per se, but that we feel like bad friends, and there's might be some reasons why, and there might be some things we might be able to do about it. So thank you for that. Thanks for supporting the pod.
Absolutely. And you can find, well, I'm still on my social media hiatus, but if should you be interested in seeing some feeds of mine, I am on Twitter at HEAMCast, HEAMCAST. I am also on Instagram, same at, and then Happily Ever Aftermath is Facebook. And if you have any thoughts about The Best Man that are not spoilers about The Best Man Holiday, you can also email me, contact@heamcast.com. Oh my God, I'm looking forward to this. And thank you again for coming.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't wait. Just let me know when to watch it, because as you might guess, I also own the sequel. This one I did not have on VHS because it came out in 2013.
Well,
but I do have it on DVD.
Wonderful. All right. So until next time, may your aftermath be happy.